All right, hello and welcome everyone to tonight's town hall meeting. Today, we attempted to utilize this time to discuss many concerns that affect the residents of Dearborn. We have multiple disciplines and functions of state and federal officials, from local level to federal level. So, without further ado, I'd like to get started with the panelists that we have. If each one can please grab the microphone, state their name, and a little bit about themselves.
Hi everybody, my name is Erin Burns. I'm a member of City Council here in Dearborn. I apologize, I can only stay for a few moments. I have to duck out for a family event, but I'm very glad that you all are here. I know our state rep, Hamoud, has done a really wonderful job of organizing the community around issues of air quality, so thank you for helping to organize this tonight. I think it's great to have everyone here. This is a very important issue, and I think the work that we're seeing now with the air quality ordinance and all of these kind of community events is really a result of decades and decades of organizing. So this hasn't come out of nowhere. It's been the result of a lot of hard work, and we recognize that. So I hope that the panels here today can answer your questions and really hear your concerns. And we're definitely looking to take action. So this will not be done in vain. But thank you all for being here.
And I'm Regina Strong. I am the new Environmental Justice Public Advocate. I'm part of EGLE. This position was created as part of the governor's executive order that created the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. The Office of Environmental Justice Public Advocate was created to really provide a voice for community and to make sure everyone benefits from the environmental protections that we have equitably. Prior to this, there are many of you that I know because I was the Michigan director of the Beyond Coal campaign for Sierra Club. So I've done a lot of work in this area and am looking forward to hearing from folks tonight.
Good evening, my name is Abdullah Hamoud. I am the state representative for Michigan's 15th district, largely just the city of Dearborn. Thank you, Erin. The true credit goes to Salah, Sam, Adil Mosif, who had the Facebook post heard all around the state, I think is what triggered a town hall, and Abdul Hakim. So give credit where credit is due. Thank you to all those who helped organize, who helped rally. Mahdi Ali, who informed the local mosque of the time and place. And then everybody before you. I just created the Facebook event. That's all I did. Not the one who organized this, truly. In my capacity as state representative, we deal with all issues. Frankly, we work very closely with all my partners at this table before me, from the department to the city to the federal level. And in essence, it's my role to try to enact or create policy or change laws to better the quality of life for the residents of Dearborn and all around Michigan.
Hi everyone, I'm Susan Dabaja. I'm the council president here, and I want to thank everyone that put this together, including Saleh, Mahdi, Sam, Adil Motif, and everyone else that was involved. I do want to say I'm very happy that myself and two of my colleagues are here, Leslie, Councilwoman Herrick and Councilwoman Byrnes are here. Councilman Mike Serini wanted to be here. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it due to something else that was scheduled. What I want to say is, you know what? A discussion I was having earlier is that everyone up here has a role. And respecting our roles and understanding our roles and making sure we do the best within our roles is what's important. So I think the idea that the organizers had in terms of inviting everyone and being able to address the issues that are of concern to you, but based on our respective roles, is very important. One thing that I'm very happy about, I'm happy that we have a state rep like Abdullah Hamoud, who has really been active in terms of some of the concerns that this community has expressed for years, which has to do with the environment. For a long time, I felt like maybe perhaps we didn't have the person in Lansing that we needed to do that. So I thank you, Rep. Hamoud, for doing that. And on the other part is the council. I mean, we're all up here. We're going to do what we can do within our respective roles to help in that regard. But obviously there's the other issues that you guys could ask us about, bring to our attention. Anything in terms of like neighborhood services, streets, any complaints that you guys have, anything, please bring it up. And if we have an answer for you today, perfect. If we don't, we definitely will then communicate with you at a later point about it. And then lastly, we have, and I know Congresswoman Dingell will speak for herself, but to have someone here from the federal level, the council level, the city level, state level, and Sam Baydoun should be joining us soon. It's really important. And I'll tell you, I grew up in the community. Maybe 30 years ago, I don't remember, or 20 years ago, maybe even 15 years ago. I don't know how much presence you guys, we would have from the various levels of elected bodies here at the table. But it's a testament to what Councilwoman Byrnes said earlier. It's because it's the years and years of work and organization. So I commend everyone, and I'm hopeful that we'll have a fruitful discussion, and inshallah that we will have something productive come out of it, especially for the next meeting with the Attorney General's office. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Councilwoman Leslie Herrick. Thank you for having all of us here today, and thank you for your participation in the town hall. I know a number of you, we've met over time, and you've expressed your concerns about what's happening with the environment, long history of the environment, especially here in the south end of Dearborn. But thank you for your advocacy and your participation, because you are representing many more people who are your neighbors and your friends and your family who live in this area. And I wanted to echo Susan's comments about our different roles. As a resident here, having grown up in Dearborn, I'm a lifelong Sierra Club member. And actually, Regina and I have been at DEQ hearings together, and we have a long history, personally, of activism. And so this is my opportunity to go even further to help be your voice here at the city level with what we can do at the city level, but to continue my work with the state, with Regina's new role with EGLE, the former DEQ. So I just wanted to let you know that I have a history going back. And also I wanted to mention that I grew up on the west side of Dearborn, but I spent a lot of time in southwest Detroit. My dad had an office building right at the foot of Oakwood where it ends over at the 4th Street Bridge there. And so I have, we'd be down there every weekend helping out. It was a family-owned business. And I grew up seeing, the traffic and the dirt from the trucks and cleaning the windows and trying to sweep the sidewalk. And he did his best to, put flowers in, and we had a flagpole. He was really proud of that. And that's part of why I'm here today. I grew up with that legacy with that was important to my dad to contribute to the community in Southwest Detroit. But I personally am kind of a victim of some of the pollution. I, like many of you or your children, your family members, I now have asthma, and we shouldn't have to deal with that on a daily basis in our neighborhood. So I'll do what I can to help. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Debbie Dingell, who's having a little asthma attack as she's sitting here, so I apologize. I am your congressman, and I really do care about these issues, and I think it's important that we talk about them, but I'm somebody who thinks that not only do we talk, but we gotta act. So I've been working closely with Abdullah, members of council, on a number of projects that have come up in the last couple of years. When the Consumers Power dig issue came up, I went with Abdullah, but I went and talked to Patty, who's the CEO of Consumers, and they ultimately realized what they were doing, and they withdrew the permitting request. When DTE then began its project, I went to the city, the mayor, the council was aware of it, but I went with the mayor and to Abdullah, and I put us all at the same table. And what we've got to do is to take these issues on. Tonight's meeting was really instigated by, it began, its foundations was, and I do want to thank everybody for putting this meeting together and for everybody that's here. And it's only, this meeting went on because Dana Nessel wanted to meet with the community and talk about issues. Then Abdullah told me before she did that she had to postpone, and we said, let's go on. People were planning on being here. Let's talk about the issues. And I know she's looking for a date to reschedule it in September, and she wants to hear what the issues are. I want to always be talking to you. We've got people that are in this area that are a source of tax base, but I didn't have asthma until 2 years ago, and I'm a Dearborn resident, and I don't think I got it out of nowhere. And I'm not a child. And you think about what it's like to be a child in this neighborhood, and that fact that an inhaler costs $700 for some of these parents. We have an issue, so we gotta work together. And what we gotta do is, and we're at the Congress, at the congressional level, I'm introducing a bill that's actually gonna take us to a carbonless society it's a goal by 2050. So how do we transition to electric vehicles, and how do we build them here so we're still getting the benefit of them? And that those are all the issues. We gotta work together. When we did the DTE, which I stopped in the middle of that, instead of it being confrontational, we worked it out. We got lots of employers in this neighborhood. We gotta talk to them, we gotta understand the issues, we gotta make sure that EPA is monitoring and we're enforcing. And that's what we all got to work on together. So, thank you.
Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Sam Baydoun, the Wayne County Commissioner. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. Traffic at this time of the day is horrible. So as many of the activists here in the South End know, we started this group to address the concerns in the South End. My role as a county commissioner is Miller Road and the Miller Bridge in Wyoming and all the roads that lead to the South End. Before I came in, I was on the phone with a county official. Tomorrow I have a meeting at 9:30 in the morning specifically to talk about Miller Road. Miller Road right now is number 14 on their list, according to the studies, the traffic studies that they did. And I told them it's number 14 because people are not traveling on that road. That's why it came down to number 14. We are trying to come up with a solution, and I'm talking also, I'm gonna reach out to the executive. We wanna bring it up to number 1 position. We cannot wait until 2021 to replace Miller Road. I made that very clear, and I will make it clear again tomorrow. And we had a meeting about a month ago. A few of us here, Walid and Ali Balaid and Adil Mozid, went to the meeting in Westland, and we, took pictures of how bad the roads are, and we showed them, and they really understand how bad it is, and we need to keep moving, and we have to stay engaged, and I'm sure that Abdullah and the rest of the distinguished panel can talk about the other aspects of addressing the issues related to the South End, and thank you again.
All right, thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. I really am impressed by the diverse cross-functional team of elected officials from different phases or stages of their responsibility that can address a multitude of issues. So with that said, how we're gonna have this programmed is we're gonna have an open mic session for anybody to come up, ask questions, comments, and based on the question or comment, it'll be designated to either one of them to respond. So with that, without further ado, we'll get started. I have a presentation that I've created that's gonna tackle most of the issues. So if you see any of the issues mentioned in the presentation, then so be it. If not, please feel free to come in to the mic, ask the question, or state your comment. If not, you can always write it on the index card, and after everyone is done, we will go ahead and have them done. So, any questions as of now? All right, if not. So, the presentation, like I said, is gonna be multiple of things, and the first thing, and I know Sam Baydoun, you kind of elaborated and stated what you were done, and I believe back in June 27, there was a session, a hearing that was held at Westland City Hall to bump up the priority of Miller Road in the list. I know you kind of touched based on that, and I kind of missed some of it talking to someone else, so I apologize. But can you just elaborate a bit more of what the plan is moving forward and bumping that up, and where we stand and what are our next steps? In addition to, There's the bridge. I know some concerns that came to me about the bridge, and I know at some point there was communications made that it requires a larger budget and it is pursued differently. So if you can just touch base on those two aspects and educate the community on what's going on.
Again, as far as Miller Road, we are trying to bring it up to the top of the list. And we cannot wait, like I said, until next year. There's some efforts right now, and I'll know more details tomorrow. It's a very crucial meeting tomorrow. I'm getting the executive involved in this. This is a big deal for me. This is my top priority as a Wayne County Commissioner is to fix Miller Road. And I will know more tomorrow, and I can update you and tell you what the outcome. As far as the bridge, as you know, back in May, the governor, the Wayne County executive, and the mayor paid a visit, and I don't know if the president of the council was there in May when they visited the bridge. This is a much bigger issue. It's gonna cost $50 million, and I believe the county already submitted an application to obtain a grant. It's gonna take a big cooperation to do something as far as the bridge. The county alone cannot fix the bridge, and the state is gonna need some federal help. As a matter of fact, on May 16, when they were meeting there, I was on the way back from Washington. I sat next to Senator Debbie Stabenow, and my main discussion with her was Miller Bridge. And I said, you need to get involved with Senator Peters. She promised she would work with Congresswoman Dingell on trying to identify if there's any emergency funding in the transportation budget. She made that promise, and I want to follow up with her. I discussed it with Senator Peters, so this is going to take a big collective effort on the federal, state, and local level to replace Miller Bridge. That's the update that I can give you on Miller Road and on Miller Bridge.
Can I add? Is that... Hello? All right. I do want to add, and I'm glad you mentioned federal funding. I know a few months ago, actually, maybe about a year ago, Congresswoman Dingell and I and Councilman Robert Abraham met for the same thing. And I know Congresswoman Dingell has been looking into finding ways to help provide some federal funding for it. Because let's be realistic here, and what Commissioner Baydoun just said, we don't have the funds in terms of, it's not a city road, but even if it were, we don't have the funds. County doesn't have the funds, and I don't think the state has the funds alone to make it happen. So it's a good collective effort, and I hope you guys have a productive meeting tomorrow.
So I'll just comment on the roads plan happening at the state level. Before I do, just also make an announcement. There are individuals from the Attorney General's office present who are here taking notes, just to be able to be informed and hear what the community's needs are. I also want to recognize Adil Mosef, one of our school board trustees, and one of the reasons that we're having a meeting today, as well as Dave Norwood, who's one of the directors, I forget the exact title, Sustainability, there we go, perfect, for the city of Dearborn. As it pertains to the roads plans at the state level. To date, we are short about $2.5 billion a year to improve our roads. That's $2.5 billion new dollars that we need to add to our roads to improve our roads to what's known as a good or fair status. So to get to 90% good or fair roads, we need $2.5 billion new dollars each year dedicated to roads. The governor announced her proposal of a 45-cent gas tax as one means of trying to get to $2.5 billion. The current negotiations are happening now in the House and Senate in Lansing about a compromise proposal of trying to look for avenues of revenue. Some of the things that I'm advocating for are heavy truck mileage taxes. So a lot of the damage that we see happening on Miller Road and the Miller bridges are because of the heavy trucks, and we think it's about time that they pay their fair share. Also even a form of toll bridges or toll roads for trailers and for semis only. This is adopted in some other states, and we'd like to see it done here. That has the capacity of raising over $200 million alone. And rightfully so amongst those who are damaging our roads more than others. Another part of the conversation we're advocating for is how we construct our roads. It's time we look into new ways of constructing our roads to make them last longer. There actually are some roads in Michigan Some roads in Texas, over 800 miles of road in Texas that were constructed with this new product that ended up failing, and the roads ate themselves apart from the inside.
That's what happened on Miller.
Exactly. And there was no clawback language in the contract, meaning those who built the roads weren't on the hook for it, even though they used the product that failed. And so we're looking for strengthening our contracts, making sure we build our roads right the first time, and make sure that they last. Other things we're also looking at is how we take care of our roads in the winter. I was just out at Dow Chemical, actually in Midland. They are actually going to be sampling building roads using plastics that are hard to recycle. They've paved some of their parking lots at their world headquarters center, and they're working with the governor now to try to pilot some areas where they can try to build roads differently in a more sustainable manner. But also there's a proposal to look at beet juice as a means of trying to protect our roads instead of salting our roads in the winter. I know that sounds weird, beet juice to be used on the roads. I don't know how productive or fruitful that will be, but from my understanding, it's far better on our roads. I don't think 45-cent gas tax will be the ultimate proposal. I don't think that is what will end up passing. I think we'll see a bipartisan compromise that will come to the table, hopefully by the end of September, and that will go into place come October.
I just want to mention something. Last week in our county commission meeting, we passed a resolution against any increases of the size or the weight of trucks. There's some speculation, and I don't know if Abdullah, you've heard this. This is something going on in other states. That's how the commission chair, Alicia Bell, told us, and they wanted to put it on the record. Some states are trying to increase the size and the weight of their trucks, and it could be coming to Michigan. We already have one of the heaviest, if not the heaviest, in the country. And Abdullah, this is a task for you and the rest of your friends in Lansing. We're addressing the, replacing, fixing the roads and coming up with solutions, but we haven't talked about the main cause of these crumbling roads, which is the heavy truck weight. So you're gonna have to do something in Lansing to legislate and reduce the truck weights.
All right, thank you very much, appreciate it. So going further into the presentation. I'm sorry.
I just want to say that here's a reality. Our roads are terrible throughout the whole state. I mean, I got a cracked windshield again today. So this is a county road, technically. It's also critical to Ford Motor Company. Ford Motor Company has been lobbying the state and telling them that this is a priority to get it fixed. We've got a problem at the federal level, the state level, the local level. No one wants to, everybody knows how bad the roads are, but we don't know how we're gonna pay for it. And less money's coming in, we're collecting less revenue because as cars become more fuel efficient, there's less gas tax money actually going into the fund. We gotta figure out a way, we're gonna find money to pay for the roads. This has a chance more than some others because of its importance to this community and its economic importance. So we all gotta work together, but we gotta help talk to people. You can't fix things with nothing. The federal level, we need an infrastructure bill. And I'm gonna try to, but we've gotta get the county, quite frankly, to agree, and the state. We can't get federal money unless the state and the county say this is a priority project. The last Tiger grant, which was not here, was in another place in the 12th, but was in Wayne County, and shall go, not specifically mentioned. The county didn't support the Tiger grant. And when asked, told MDOT not to, so I know you're not gonna do that, and you gotta make sure the county's supporting us. But we gotta get federal, state, local, all lined up. The only way we're ever gonna get this fixed is everybody being together. And getting all the partners together. So it's getting the businesses in this area to talk about its economic importance too.
There's a question. Congresswoman Dingell, I have to pose this question. and I don't know, you can probably play a major role. Will Ford Motor Company contribute to any replacement of the roads on Miller? I mean, if we don't have the money, because a lot of the traffic comes to their plant and to their, you know, to the facility there. Do you think Ford Motor Company can come out and say, here's some money towards the replacing of Miller Road?
I haven't asked him that question, but I can guess without, I know that they've been lobbying for it, but they pay a lot of taxes, and they think that in exchange for their taxes, we should, I'm guessing, you know, they have been lobbying, but it's not only, it's probably a very, I'm just thinking the way they do, it's a precedent. So that's why we charge taxes. So, and they, you know, we've got high tax, I'm gonna never get into this, but I'm not gonna make any mistakes today.
Yeah, but the taxes that they pay, the property taxes, none of our property taxes go for the road, you know that, and Susan knows that. Most of our property taxes go for the services here. Even the county taxes that we pay to the county, the county doesn't use the property taxes to fix the roads. Everything goes to Lansing and it gets back to us through Public Act 51, right, Abdullah?
Now you know why the roads don't get fixed anywhere.
Thank you. So now we shift over now to a city level. There are several city lots that have been unserviced for quite some time, and it has become a periodic issue. There's the residential inspector, Ryan Drew, I believe his name is, who I've been in contact several times in regards to this. And it seems as though unless, by the way, it's for the record, who has been very helpful, Ryan is there at every call, whenever possible, and follows up on the issues. But the feedback that I receive more often than not is that they're not, the Office of Residential Services are not receiving quote unquote enough complaints, as if one complaint is not enough. I mean, when you get a call for an issue like this, how is this requiring more than one complaint to service or get done? That's kind of the issues that we've been having with the residential service department. There's 3 lots that I know of that are city owned. One is shown on the screen, Akron and Lapeer, right across from Lapeer Park. That corner where it intersects with Akron, that's a huge lot extending. You can see how tall that grass is when compared to the adjacent property. It's almost, if not as tall as the fire hydrant. So how long will it have to be unmaintained for it to get to that growth? That's for anyone to imagine. So that's one city lot that tends to grow further than it has to.
Do you want me to respond, or do you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go through several lots and then you can respond officially.
I thought the main topic is pollutions.
It's anything and everything.
The main one is pollutions.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it. As I mentioned in the beginning, we have multiple cross-functional team members to address all concerns involving the south end. So, and that's what we're going through. So, you have a lot here on Akron and Laurie, as you can see on the sidewalk itself in the easement. I mean, it goes without saying, right? It's really bad. And actually, that's the truck to Ryan. That's Ryan's truck, the city truck. When I met with him to go over issues like this, and unfortunately, these are what the conditions that the city lots are in. This is just the same corner. Some of the issue is the spewing of the waste. Also, as you can see, the orange overload on the street that have dried up and turned orange, and you can see from the sign all the weeds that have grown around it. This is the same corner lot, just a different picture of the same area. If you go in, this is the 3rd city lot that you have. This is on Holly and Lapeer, so across from the very first picture, where when cut as well, you'll have the waste lawn spewed all over the sidewalks and onto the street, as you can see how unappealing it is and unaesthetically pleasing. Another lot, this I don't know for a fact who owns this lot, but it's on the corner of Rouleau and Dix. I don't know if it's city-owned or privately owned, but as you can see, it becomes a habit when every large lot that you go through and you just see unmanicured lawn or lawn that's been cut with the waste lawn just spewed all over without any recognition to clean after. So this is the third lot, also on Holly and Welch, of unserviced or unmaintained. And these are, with the exception of Rouleau and Dix, all other lots are city-owned. So I was just hoping that we could get some attention on these city lights to be maintained and properly taken care of.
Can you talk about that corner while we're at it, or you want to come back to this one?
We will come back to it.
I have some comments on this one.
So do I. So I'll give you the mic, Susan.
All right, so 100%, every single council member will tell you that there is no excuse for any city lot not to be maintained and held to the same standards as a private lot, privately owned lot. And that's something that you will hear time and time again from the council. We've gotten complaints, not just about the lots here in the south end, but throughout the city that are owned by the city. And one of the things that we've really stressed upon is that how can we hold private residents accountable if we can't hold ourselves accountable? We should be the first, we should be the model. And we're not waiting for multiple complaints or one complaint. We should be waiting for 0 complaints. So I'm going to take back these specific lots and speak with the administration about it. But absolutely, if you feel that there are certain city lots or property that's not being properly maintained, you are more than welcome to reach out to myself or Councilman Herrick or anyone from the council directly and let us know. You could, if you need contact information, you can see me afterwards. If you're writing anything down, I don't know if anyone is, but 943-2403. You can email, you can reach out any way you can, let us know and we'll follow up with it. There's absolutely no excuse. There's nothing for me to defend here. But let me tell you, we've called in these complaints ourselves. We're not waiting for someone to call to tell us about it. When we see these things, we call them in too. And I'll give you an example, like another good example is, but you guys could be our eyes and ears along with us. I mean, there's only so much that we see or can do. When Sam was talking about some of the poles that were lying on the easements, I mean, there should be no excuse. And I think it was, is it Ryan also, or Drew? Drew Ryan? Yeah, I mean, he spoke with you and you said he was very helpful. That's wonderful. And I am sad that he couldn't get it done just because he is hearing the complaints. He should be able to get it done. It took for a council person to contact somebody in that department and then contact DTE, and now some of it is gone and hopefully all of it will be gone very soon. Unfortunately, sometimes you need to get some people to be part of the conversation to get it done. I wish it weren't the case, but sometimes it is that way. So you're welcome to call us. There's no excuse, and we agree 100% on this.
All right, thank you very much.
Can I make a comment on that one?
Sure, go ahead.
Can you go back to this picture and well, you can see this, Holly and Welsh, and go to the next one, please. Okay, I drove around this property with one of the city inspectors about a month ago. I don't see any reason, and I wish, well, Dave Norwood is here. This particular property should be rezoned to vehicular parking, and this property should be turned into a parking lot for all, there's a lack of parking in this neighborhood, Susan. So, like on a Friday, when you have so many people coming to the mosque, they can't find any parking. How far is this from the mosque here? Within walking distance, correct? I mean, very, very close. I think this would be an ideal spot to change this to vehicular parking, where you turn it into a city-owned parking so people can park there during the holidays, during the Friday prayers. And even these businesses, I believe, they lack some parking, if I'm not mistaken. Susan, if you can look into that. And I think we want to welcome our senator here.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Chang. I'm the state senator for District 1, which includes a portion of Southwest Detroit. And so I am just here to listen. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Chang, for attending. So just to elaborate on your comments, Sam, this has been a concern for quite some time. And another city employee that I've been working with is Larry Johnson, who, by the way, very nice guy, very well-versed in what he does. But unfortunately, it seems as though the complaints that are coming from certain individuals, or the number of individuals, is not sufficient to take immediate action. So for the longest, I've requested these dumpsters to be shifted further away from the sidewalk for safety reasons and many other reasons. Hopefully further away from the sidewalk. And the next slide, you'll see how literally close they are, the sidewalks and the conditions they are. When temperatures get really high, the smell walking by, and this is one of the main routes to the mosque. So a lot of residentials that come from, I would say, north of Dix, pass through here for the most of the time. And this is what they have to walk through, a power pole and a dumpster, 2 commercial dumpsters. The previous owner of the Arabian Village Market had issues with the city in acquiring the lot in order to properly place these dumpsters. By the way, these are not up to code. They must be enclosed and so on and so forth. So the business just got sold a couple months ago. And the dumpsters should have been in attainment to the latest code, and it still hasn't. And I don't know what the issue is with the city not being able to find a solution, but they haven't been able to resolve it, nor at the very least shift it further away so that the residents that are walking, the pedestrians, are not have to endure the smell and the visibility of such a large commercial. Not to mention the safety hazard being so close to electrical power lines. If you see just above it, when dump trucks, when they have to walk through, how are they going to pick up the dumpster without blocking the pedestrian walkway? 2, if that dumpster gets flipped in a certain way, it could rip any of those lines and make it a safety hazard. So for many reasons, they have to be enclosed in a localized area and much further from a pedestrian walkway. The proposal that I had submitted to Larry is at least 150 to 200 feet from the pedestrian walkway, which would put it near the second post or the second or third dumpster that you see far back in this area. So for most, some may think that's a simple request, easily done, just shift it over, but for whatever reason, hasn't been done. So if we can get help with that, I'd really appreciate it. Okay, so I guess we'll open it up for anybody that has any questions to come up. Just, yeah.
You can line up at the microphone right now.
مش داير المايك؟
السلام عليكم جميعا. احنا اول حضرنا المشكله الكبيره هو تلوث الهواء الذي المنطقه هذه نحن واطفالنا متسممين من تلوث الهواء من EGLE. فكل ما نطالبه ونتقدم فيه نريد ان نتقدم اول سؤال عن ايش موضوع عن EGLE وتلوث الهواء.
The question is about the case steel company and pollution that's actually AK Steel Company. The pollution that actually generating in the area, and many children are getting harmed and affected by this pollution that's constantly throwing the polluted air into the area.
فنحن نعاني من المشكلة هذه من سنين وقد كان فيها عدة جلسات في المحكمة، ونريد من يكون معنا في البرنامج هذا أو للمنطقة هذه قبل أي شيء من الأشياء هذه أن يحيي الناس الأطفال ونحن الذي احنا عايشين في جو مخنوق، كبيرنا وصغيرنا من اللي عندهم السرطان، من الذي عندهم عدة أمراض من تلوث الهواء.
This case has been, revolving around since the 90s. And the impact with children and elderly people who have some, chronic illnesses. And we're just looking for some kind of relief or solution to this problem.
So Stephanie, maybe you and I can talk about some of the bills that we're working on, and I'll kick it off. 100%, this has been an ongoing problem for decades, frankly. I can tell you what we're trying to do as a solution from the state level. Myself, Senator Chang has been a leader on air quality for years. First and foremost, whenever a permit is approved, the way it happens is if Factory A, if they emit a level of pollution that's below the threshold, they get approved. If across the street, Factory B applies for a permit, if they emit below the threshold, they're approved. The department currently doesn't say, well, how about Factory A plus Factory B? Collectively, do they emit past the threshold, which is known as cumulative impact. So we have a whole package of bills. We're actually reintroducing it this summer. And we're gonna try to hold a press conference here in the South End, if not in front of AK Steel, somewhere else. And some people will note that. To have a press conference, to shed light, to bring your children, to bring your families, to us to raise more awareness, to say that this can no longer be the case. It's not enough that we stop new permits from coming into place. We now have to find a way to roll them back. I know there's an ongoing suit between community activists and organizations with AK Steel, also regarding some of the permits that have been approved, and we're hoping that those can be resolved through litigation, that the people will win on that front. We now have an environmental justice director, or advocate, I should say. And her role specifically is addressing bad air quality in disproportionately impacted communities such as South Dearborn. And so we also have a solution on the table that says whenever a permit is to be approved, you have to take into account the income status of the neighborhood. If the neighborhood is a largely minority community, is this a community that's been disproportionately impacted over the last decades? Basically, you have to take all these factors into play before you can ever be granted a permit. So we're working on them, but it's very difficult to advance. That's why right now this advancement through lawsuit is one main route that we can take to hopefully enact some change. And I'm hoping that the department, being friendlier to our community now with the new governor, can also enact some change. And I'm gonna let Regina and Stephanie speak as well.
So I wanted to just talk a little bit, you mentioned cumulative impact. And one of the things that, as part of the Office of Environmental Justice Public Advocate, we're looking at working with the response team, which includes all the departments that are part of the state that the governor also included in that executive order, in how we can get to using some kind of a tool or a screen or something. Other states do it, call it an EJ screen. Teresa Landrum, who's here, was part of a work group last year, convened by the administration, and we're looking at how do we implement some of the recommendations, and that screening tool is one of them, because what we realize is that this is one of many communities, unfortunately, impacted heavily by the density of pollution. And here's what I've learned going from being on the activist side to the inside. It is a transition because of how we regulate. I think Abdullah kind of referenced this, but the regulations are very specific to certain toxins. And so as a regulatory agency, EGLE is in a position where they have to follow the regulations as to whether a permit is approved. And so this role was created to kind of go beyond regulation and look at impact in a lot of ways and work with communities. So it is a process. We're all trying to work together to get it done, but I want people to know that it is in process. And an important part of this role is that it's a public advocate, right? It's not just an environmental justice department. So that's why I'm here tonight, because I want to hear your concerns so I can work on how we address those. Yes, so the executive order became official at the end of April. So it's only been a few months, and we're already working as quickly as we can to get things going. The interagency response team is meeting monthly, started last month, and we'll meet every month to look at a lot of the issues and opportunities, I think, to make Michigan not infamous when it comes to environmental justice like we are now, but a national leader, and that's the transition that we're trying to make.
هو بالمختصر المفيد بالنسبة للسؤال اللي سألته بيقولوا إنه الآن في تغير في التشريع الحكومي في لانسي، وإنه الأخ عبد الحمود بيقول على إنه الآن هناك قوانين وأنظمة تنظم قضية الترخيص للشركات لممارسة عملها بالمنطقة. وهذه القوانين والأنظمة فيها يعني خطوات وأساليب وطرق حتى يستطيعوا إنهم يعني يحصلوا على الموافقة الشركة تستمر في عملها في المنطقة. وهناك يعني مصلحتين، مصلحة المواطنين ومصلحة الشركات. الشركات عليها مسؤوليات لأنه عندها موظفين أيضا هؤلاء الناس، والشركات يعني استثمرت في المنطقة. فلذلك الآن حاكم الولاية اتخذ قرار إجرائي ليس فقط النظر في الشركات، ولكن النظر أيضا في تأثير هذه الأضرار والتلوث الموجود على الناس الموجودين، وعلى طبيعة السكان، وعلى دخل السكان، وإذا كانوا أقليات أو إذا كانوا أكثرية. فالموضوع الآن ينظر إليه من زاوية مختلفة تماماً عما كان ينظر إليه قبل 10 سنوات أو 15 سنة. فقضية اللقاءات والاستمرار والضغط والمطالبة المستمرة رايح تؤدي لنتيجة، ولو أن النتيجة الآن السيد حمود بيقول إنه عندهم خيار آخر اللي هو أن يلتجوا إلى القضاء ويقيموا الدعوة ضد هذه الشركات الأضرار الناتجة عن التلوث الموجود.
I'd like to just pause for a moment just to thank Dr. Khalil Ahmed of the YACC, the Armenian American Cultural Center, for translating, and then also just to implement a 3-minute time frame for the responses, just because we're going low on time, and there are a lot of note cards and people.
Okay. I'll just be very brief, but there's, first of all, your state representative is doing a great job being a strong advocate at the Capitol around environmental justice issues. I just want to recognize that. And I think that we cannot overstate the importance of having this environmental justice public advocate. When have we ever had an environmental justice public advocate in our state government? And this is really huge. So the fact that Regina is here in this position and here listening to you is really important, because she's talking to other department liaisons who can really help make change across the board. So just one thing, I've got a bunch of bills, but one of them I'll just mention really briefly is around this idea of when a company violates the air quality standards. We know that there's a whole bunch of companies who keep violating, right? And it's not just AK Seals, it's a lot of different corporations around the area who violate the air quality standards. The money currently goes into this big thing called the general fund. And so it can be used for whatever purpose. And so what I think we really need to do is make sure that the money that a company pays when they pay a fine, and usually it should be more than what they pay, but right now the money goes into this general fund. But we think that the money should actually come back to the communities that are most impacted. And this is something that I heard from Ms. Landrum and from other residents in my district when I was a state representative over and over and over again, that it should go towards things like air monitors and vegetative buffers and health impact assessments and all of these different things, because we can actually help to be proactive and address some of the air pollution. And there's quite a bit of money that comes into the state budget from these violations, and hopefully we can get some more, and we can try to get these companies to pay a little bit more, but we should be making sure that that money comes back to affected communities and doesn't just go into this general fund. And so that's something that I'm going to be pushing this term, and it is something that could help communities like this. So.
Good evening, folks. My name is Ken Paris, P-A-R-A-S. Big thing in the news and around our state, let alone the country, is PFAS. And I've got a question in regards to this, because if we look back this last year, we can maybe remember some of the oozing foam that we had on Schaefer between Oakwood and I-75, which initially came out that it was not a dangerous chemical, but yet it happened 2 different times. Keep in mind too that the city of Melvindale, where a lot of this took place, our fire department in Dearborn is a joint fire department between Dearborn and Melvindale. Okay, so our fire department responded to that. Investigation by MDEQ at that time, now EGLE, and also the Great Lakes Water Authority said it wasn't a danger. But then after a while, this last May 8th in fact, there was an article in MLive and also in a fire review periodical that made mention that our City of Dearborn Fire Department responded to a scrapyard fire on June 4th of 2018. And it was actually, they're looking at fire retardant chemicals that have PFAS. It's FR1 was the article, but it is in particular AFFF, aqueous film foaming form filming foam concentrate, and there's also a C8 chemical that I know our fire department says that we don't carry. So I don't want to even think about any blame here and so on, because a scrapyard fire, it could have been chemicals that were there from decades ago and now coming out. But what concerns me is that the report came out from the state that there would be information by June 1st, and that they were going to actually name the municipality that they believe was responsible or possibly responsible for this. And I just want to bring it up because we're always kind of put it by the wayside. We don't hear things for a long period of time, wondering if somebody could possibly get back to me, because I've made inquiries and not getting any information back, if it's been identified or not, you know, what the cause, and making sure local fire departments, Southeast Michigan, Michigan, whatever, are not carrying that fire retardant chemical anymore. Okay.
So I'm slightly familiar, but I don't know all the details, but definitely my email address is strongur1@michigan.gov. If you email me specifically, I can get more information for you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Moser. I do sit on the Board of Education in Dearborn, but I'm here speaking on my personal capacity, so we'll be hearing from Emily Adel today. The reason why we have this meeting, obviously, today is because the Attorney General, after a Facebook post, responded personally to it, and she said that she did not know about a case that was being argued in the Detroit Circuit Court, or Wayne County Circuit Court, and this case was against one of the major polluters that we have in our neighborhood. And I sat in the courthouse, so did Mr. Muhammad al-Ruhaishi, Muhammad al-Zuwaidi, Ahmed Muhammad, and many others in the southend community. And I was just disheartened to see the government standing on the other side. And I clearly saw them on the wrong side of history. And that's what I said in my post, and the Attorney General said she had no idea about it, that she's reviewing 38,000 cases, and that she'd like to hear from us. So I said, that's fine, we can organize definitely a town hall meeting where we can talk about these things. And obviously there was the reschedule that some stakeholders are not going to be present here. I still hope and I have faith in our Attorney General in actually being on the right side of history and switching side to argue for the people instead of arguing for the company. Because this case has been going on, folks, since 2014, and it was argued all the way to the Supreme Court based on only on technicalities. That the company said, you didn't file this lawsuit within time. And then the environmental organization said, yes, we did. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the environmental organizations and sent it back to the lower court to be argued. And it was argued that day. And unfortunately, the judge that day made his judgment in favor of the company and in favor of the EQ. But he did acknowledge that this case, it doesn't matter where he's gonna judge, it's gonna go to the Court of Appeals and possibly to the Michigan Supreme Court. But I am hoping that the Attorney General, when this case is going to be appealed, that she will be standing with us, and we'll see her on our side. So, kind of addressing the elephant in the room because she's not here, but we're hoping for that September meeting, and we're going to hold her accountable to it. Just in the first quarter of 2019, the same company had 500, maybe the air pollution is not great here. So 500, more than 500 violations by this company in the first quarter of 2019. And when they hold these town hall meetings with us, which some of us still attend, they tell us everything is great, that they're actually close to 0 violations. So, Regina, I'm glad that you're there. I mean, your office being there is a victory for all of us. We've been asking for this for years. So we're glad that you're there. We want the government to give you even more teeth to bite on, and definitely the cumulative effect, that needs to go immediately. And I know Senator Chang and Representative Hamoud, you are in the minority right now, but I'm hoping that you'll do something about this cumulative effect, that this needs to go immediately. These companies have very easy thresholds to meet, as you mentioned, if they are being judged individually. But if they are being judged based on the area, definitely they will not meet that threshold. And I wanted to go back to these violations, by the way. They violate their own permit right now that the state has approved and that is still in court. So, just quickly, and I'm sorry I'm going over the 3 minutes, but the roads, let's not beat around the bush. I mean, we do know why these roads are deteriorating, especially in Miller, and it's because of these trucks going back and forth. So unless we cannot fix that problem, and we may have it surface this year or next year, it's just putting a Band-Aid, and it's gonna go back again. So we will have to really, from the ground up, change the rules of how these trucks will be passing by and changing the weight limits. And I'm looking at you both, I mean, and maybe an executive order from the government. Something has to be done about these roads, and it's unbelievable. Just one last thing, and I'll end with it about city services. I'm sorry, I will have to do some self-blaming, especially for the South End residents. I don't hear them. I go, and Susan knows, I go to the city council often, and Councilwoman Herrick. But I don't see a lot of people from the South End going there and talking about these issues if they don't see them resolved. So I know it's been for a long time that the city, we have complained, and usually we do get neglected in the South End. But we still have to keep at it, because we have now people who have been in our neighborhoods before, who know our struggles. They need to hear again from us again, and we need to keep on that fight. So thank you so much again for being here today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in September. Thanks.
Thank you, Adil. I'm going to address two things that are on the city level. First, with any service complaints or neighborhood complaints, Adil is at the meetings. I do want to say, though, as the years have increased, I'm now going into my 6th year, ending my 6th year, going into my 7th year. More and more people from the community do call and contact the council office, which is great. That just shows that there's a lot more involvement coming forth from this community. So continue to do that, attend the meetings, but if you don't want to attend the meetings, just give us a call and let us know what your issues are, and hopefully we can address it. The second thing is about the roads. So we held a study session back in May, and I'm not going to go into the details of all of that because I know we have a lot more to discuss. But one of the things that the city is exploring and is committed to exploring, and I know Dave is here, and he's part of that group within the city administration, is that we're looking to see how to reroute some of the truck traffic to reduce the truck traffic along the business corridor district. That's a major problem for a lot of the businesses there. And rerouting it in a way where it's less disturbing to the businesses and to the residents. So one of the things that we might be looking at is possibly doing a traffic study and looking at some other proposals. But at this point, it's still it's a little premature to give out more detail, but trust me, it's something that we're looking at. One of the things that I learned about working in government, unfortunately, is that everything goes at a snail's pace. It's not as fast as we'd love it to happen, but you know, we're on it and we're looking at it, and there's another meeting going on with the administration to discuss some more, and hopefully we'll have an update for you guys soon. Thank you.
Hey, Salah, is anyone here to get the air quality fixed?
To get air quality.
It's not working. Sorry, guys.
No, you're fine. Just a few points on it. Thank you, Council President. If we're able to reclassify some of the roads and get some of the trucks, right, that's a great win here locally, and that's due to the advocacy of many of the community members and organizations here in this room. As it pertains to the truck weight limits, I can tell you it's on my radar. I know it's on Senator Chang's radar about reducing our truck limits. I think we're twice the weight limit as the state of Ohio. If you ever see a truck cross into Ohio, they actually have another trailer waiting for them there, so they can offset some of the load they have on their truck, because Ohio goes through the same winter that we go through. And Ohio is not appropriating that much more money to their roads than we are. But they have far stricter policies that pertain to the trucks that are damaging on the roads. That's why I'm in favor of this heavy truck millage tax. That's why I'm in favor of these toll roads on these big trucks. That's why it's about time that companies like Ford and GM and the likes pay taxes. Frankly, they pay zero. They still qualify for the mega tax credit, so at the end of the year, they're not paying anything at the state level, and they're getting money back at the federal level. So I think it is time that they paid more than their fair share. So just to address a few of those points.
And I wanted to make a point. It's nice to meet you in person. We've talked and messaged. But part of what was created along with this position is the response team that I mentioned earlier. Department of Transportation is part of that response team. So I'm glad to hear all of this, because I think these are the kinds of things that, when looked at in isolation, people don't always realize the impact it has on communities. And so I'm glad that I'm hearing this, and thank you for sharing. And I will definitely look at ways that Senator Chang and I were just talking, as well as the rep and I, and there should be a solution, and as much as we can help, we're going to try to do that. And somebody mentioned the collaborative effort of having city, county, state administration, as well as legislative in the room. I think that's powerful, because that forces us to talk about things together.
All right, thank you.
My name is Kerry O'Connor. I just wanted to mention 3 things. What's happening, and I have the photos to prove it, is Matty Maroon has a company that for decades has been emptying tanker trucks of toxic chemicals underground over by the U.S. Steel plant. I've been a person over by U.S. Steel. And I'll take that up directly with Dana Nelson. My background, part of my history involves serving as a spotter for the FBI, arranging for witnesses. My work's been used to educate federal judges, DEA agents, FBI agents, about 27,000 law enforcement professionals. One of the things I would encourage you to do is, in reaching out and trying to work with people, Terry Marecki has done everything she possibly can to enable U.S. ecology in its violation in how it practices business in Detroit. You're going to find some of your people don't want to do their jobs. And what you can do, and what you can do for her, and what you can do for Stephanie, is identify who wants to do their job and who doesn't. And part of the problem you get into is, and I'll use DEQ as an example, is people are so terrified that they're going to lose their jobs that they don't do anything. They play it safe. And it's something that what you're going to have to do is find out who wants to do their job and who doesn't want to do their job, and share that information with each other. Because going through this exercise, trying to figure out who wants to do their job, has been extraordinarily disappointing. Thank you.
The one comment I add, wholeheartedly, 100%, you're right. It's those who do who want to do their jobs who should be in the places that they are. The one caveat I will add is it might also take a different perspective, a different outlook. We might have to do our jobs differently. And then that's the only caveat I want to add, that people may be doing their jobs, but times have changed, science has changed and evolved, and it's about time that we also did things differently. So thank you so much for bringing that up. It's a great point.
Well, good evening. My name is Zainab Jaber. I'm 17, and I'm currently just asking this question as just concern for my generation and those to come after me. As we all know, air pollution increases, asthma rates increase with it, and it's pretty expensive to get an inhaler if you're not covered by Medicare fully. How will you, one, improve these situations so no one else develops these types of illnesses, and two, help make these tools like inhalers and oxygen machines more affordable for people in the South End? Thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
I can just answer, let me just answer that.
If you can hold on.
Yeah, let me just answer to that. Thank you for your questions. We spoke to earlier the package of air quality bills that I've worked alongside Senator Chang on, about cumulative impact, so on and so forth, and those will take time, obviously, to reduce asthma rates and the generations of impact that have happened here. To your point about asthma being a high cost, it costs about $35,000 a year to treat asthma. And if you don't have health insurance, yes, it can lead you to bankruptcy, it can lead you to many things, it can lead you to COPD later on in your life. Another bill that we have introduced is the $5 copay. This is a bill that would say if you ever want to go to your regular doctor, they can't charge you more than $5 out of pocket to get into that office. That's one start. We have another set of bills that would hopefully bring down the cost of prescription drugs. A lot of these drugs where you can cross the border 25 minutes from here and get a tenth of the cost. So we do also have a set of legislation and policy that we're looking to enact, hopefully here in the state of Michigan. I know Congresswoman Dingell has been leading the fight also on prescription drug costs at the federal level, because this is an issue not just in the south end of Dearborn, but all across our country. And I know she's also the co-chair or the chair of the Medicare for All caucus. So I'll let Debbie take it from there.
So I really identify, and if you've seen me in any of my national press conferences, I show the purple inhaler because people don't know how expensive it is. I think we gotta be very blunt with everybody here. We gotta keep trying, but it's not gonna pass the legislature this year, and we're not gonna get anything through as long as we have a Republican Senate and President Trump in the White House. He keeps rolling things back. So while we gotta have, as you guys introduce your bills, I'm introducing my bills, we're doing town halls, we're talking to everybody. I gotta worry about, right now, the kids that can't afford their asthma medicine. And there are people that are there to help. We've got, not here, but people who can't afford the medicine, we gotta go fight for it. The state's got people, I'm working with the state, we've got drug companies aren't happy with me right now because everybody's talking about insulin and everybody's talking about the EpiPen, and nobody has any idea that that purple inhaler costs $700. But we're gonna help people in the short term that need those inhalers get them, and you gotta call and tell us, and then you gotta help us keep the fight. But reality is, I don't want anybody to think we made you a promise we were gonna get something through. You keep trying, but we need a change in leadership at both the state and the federal level to really get some of these laws changed. This man even the auto companies had begged him not to repeal fuel economy standards, and he's still repealing fuel economy standards. Ford Motor went and cut a voluntary deal with California because that's how bad it is. So, short term, anybody that you know's got a need, you come to us. We'll help. Long term, help us get it done.
The one thing I was going to just add very briefly, that Senator Chang earlier stated that she's trying to work on a bill when somebody, when these companies violate the laws, that the money that the fines, the fees that they're paying, that it's going into the general fund. And instead of having to go to the general fund, we want to bring it back to the communities. And one thing would be, if you're bringing it back to the South End community, then a decision can be made in terms of, do we supplement inhaler costs and some other prescription costs or other things, and in addition to some of the monitoring and stuff like that. So that's something. And I guess the bottom line is, Congresswoman Dingell hit the nail on the head. It's not easy. Everything takes time, and it depends on who's in power ultimately in terms of the House, the Senate, on the state level, on the federal level. But that's why you want to continue to support those individuals that are fighting for your cause. So those are important things. I just want to point that out. Thanks.
So one of the things I wanted to say that we're looking at, and I've been in meetings about this, there are things called supplemental environmental projects. And essentially in lieu of, or as part of your fine for violation, to the point everyone's been making up here, you have the opportunity to bring benefits to the community. And I think the key is having those identified, because those are voluntarily done by companies. But if they know there are opportunities to do those, and we have those already sort of in the can, for lack of a better word, in terms of communities, I think that makes it easier for companies to make those real. And we are looking at ways to make it easier to implement those on the enforcement side.
And just because of your question right now, I just looked over to Stephanie and Regina and I said, hey, can we hold a free asthma clinic in the south end of Dearborn in the interim? Obviously, policy takes a while to change, so maybe that's something that we can work on trying to organize to to let people have access to those who don't have access currently, to at least inhalers, to a health assessment, or whatever it may be. So you have my pledge at least to start working on that immediately, and maybe we can get something done by the end of the summer.
I'd like to make this announcement. There's an organization came to our committee meetings last week in Wayne County. The organization is called World Medical Relief. They offer affordable prescription drugs for people who do not have prescription drugs. There is an income criteria. You can see me after the town hall. I'll give you their phone numbers, and they're located here in Southfield. So I shared this on my Facebook. Maybe I'll share it with you. You can share it as well.
Sure, thank you. And just so we're on track for time, if you hear you've exceeded your limit, so please try to stay within the limits, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm from South Dearborn Environment Improvement Association. I just want to make a comment about Miller, the north pond and the south pond. The way they fixed it good, but it didn't last long. Somebody was cheating on that cement. Wyoming, it was resurfaced in 1973. I used to go over a trolley track. That's my comment on it. If you want to answer, fine. Okay, the lady from the DEQ, I forgot your name, I'm sorry. I came in one time and I saw all that pollution on my white door, garage door, and I called up the next day, I called up DEQ. A lady by the name of Katie came in, she took samples and she took pictures, and she said she's going to send me the report. She never did. Our lawyer for our organization tried to get that report, but DEQ refused to give it to him. Can you find out why?
Okay.
And it's a new department now. That's one of the things you've got to realize. We have a new governor and an executive branch that's trying to really help. So
That's one of the things, and that's why Dana Nessel wanted to come tonight. I'm not, I'm the federal level, but the state's here. And I can tell you, because now we call them EGLE, by the way. It took me a while to remember that.
Yeah.
But,
Thanks, Debbie.
Yeah, you're welcome. But they are trying. I've been working with them on McLeod's Field 25 years to finally get that started, clean up. A plume in Washtenaw. The difference is night and day. And it's gonna, look, we keep saying it takes time. And you saw me, I was having an asthma attack here. We kids don't have time. We've got to take care of the short term and we've got to take care of the long term. But now we have somebody in place who cares. This governor, I can tell you that because I was working on the McLeod project and there was some asbestos in the air. Administration before wouldn't have cared. This governor wants people to tell her immediately that there is something that's happening so there's never another Flint water. We got to clean up this area. We got to go in, and it's the federal, state, and local. We've got the monitors here. We're having air quality violations. We've got hazardous days. We got to figure out how we work together and take care of people. It's going to take us a while to get laws changed, but in the meantime, we got to take care of our community.
We don't want to shut them down.
we may have to.
So just quickly close on that. I want to let you know, at the end of the presentation, there's a form of communications that you could address the concern. I would encourage everyone who does file a report like you did with EGLE, previously known as MDEQ, please get the claim number and send it to the email address that I will share at the end. You should. So this is something you're going to learn today, right? So when you call the MDEQ, which we'll also share, please make sure you get a claim number. It's a series of characters that you would keep track and email it to the email address so that, and a small description of the issue so that we can keep track of all the complaints that come out of the South End.
And for your concern you shared today, I'm going to give you my card, and if you can email me, I'll try to track it down for you.
All right, thank you.
Susan, Dabaja, I've got a sinkhole behind my garage, and I've been working on it since February until today. It's never been done. They came in and they put a cone on it, and that's it. Can I get a report from the city or from you? What causes that sinkhole?
If you wanted to be here, I apologize. What was your first name again?
Mohammed.
Mohammed, what's your last name?
Salah.
And your phone number?
313-523-0723.
And your address?
3211 Marie.
Sorry, you had to give your...
Yeah, I probably preferred short after.
But I assumed everyone is a family affair.
And the millions of people online.
Thank you, Mohammed. I'll get back with you.
All right, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. My name is Sam Baydoun, and I'm here representing AK Steel.
Boo.
He's a distant cousin. He spells his name B-E-Y.
But, you know, we know the situation in the South End, and there are certain facts that we have to take into consideration. AK Steel has been around prior to AK taking it over. It was Severstal, and it was Rouge Steel. That plant's been there for 100 years. But let's state some facts that since AK Steel has taken over, when Severstal ran the plant, they had 20,000 deviations of the permit. To this date, the Nawa Ada said 500. In 2019, there was 10 deviations by AK Steel.
I have the report.
That's too many.
I have the report.
Well,
And the report was given from AK Steel. I don't know if you've seen it.
well, I just got the report. I just got the latest report from AK. I asked them to send it to me.
I actually have it right now. I can show it to you.
So basically, and
509 violations.
But there wasn't, there were, and that's too many, but he is correct that the most recent, because I've been causing a lot of pain, and their most recent report shows it's down to 10, still unacceptable,
but it's better than 20,000 that was happening before.
Severstal was irresponsible.
And the other thing is that AK Steel is engaged in the community. We've made sure that they've been engaged. They've been holding constant town hall meetings with the citizens of the area. They've invested into the city, this community. We just finished air conditioning the entire school of this one.
It's not working.
It's not working, that's not our fault. It's you have to talk to the principal.
All fairness, they did.
It wasn't a good day today.
Yeah.
We've been suffering all those years.
Of course, you've been suffering. Nobody's.
Nasser and you know, and I know, we've been here. I'm older than you, maybe 20, 30 years, maybe. I've been in the South End for 50 years, and nobody can do nothing. Nothing at all. Once you give me air conditioning, we didn't have an air conditioning. We have to have the pollution get out of our.
I agree with you. I agree. And the other thing that AK is doing. All right, but let me finish. I gave you an opportunity. Let me finish.
Excuse me.
Let me finish. Please.
Let's give the respect to finish.
The other thing is they're spending $22 million. They're spending 22.
Hey, please, can you not interrupt? Excuse me.
We're talking about pollution. Yeah. Do you want to listen or do you
please,
want to talk?
Please, can you guys please stop interrupting?
Please.
Excuse me?
The AK is spending $22 million this fall on changing the electrostatic participator to reduce the particulates in the air. So things are happening. It's not going to change overnight, at least you have a company that's willing to engage with you and try and make a difference. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
We should get AK Steel to come and talk to the group. I'm not going to be a spokesperson.
We do. I mean, we have a town hall meeting coming up September 10th, and we'll send out the information.
That's good.
And we've been holding them on a regular basis, every quarter or a couple of months, and a lot of the people here in the room are attending.
All right, next comment.
Good evening, assalamu alaikum everyone. Shafan Ahmed. I used to actually work right up the road at Access on Solana Court, so I'm not far from where we are right now at the school. And those 2 years, I just realized after looking back on it, I was really sick just working here because of how bad the air quality was. And I worked with Rashida Tlaib at one point. This is right around the time when she got the sample of pet coke and all of that. So that's what really brought my attention to it, and it kind of clicked into place later on. So the air quality is really bad here in Southwest Detroit, in the south end of Dearborn, E-Course, everybody that's like near this industrial zone. And Abdullah mentioned it before, and so does Dingell, like policy takes time to adjust and catch up. Practices takes time, and when I worked here, it was still Severstall steel at the time, so it's good to hear that they are making changes. I figured I'd throw out some solutions because I've been helping bridging neighborhoods in Detroit, moving residents from Delray and Southwest Detroit into other parts of the community. I don't work for them, but I am helping them because they're trying to move some of the residents into my neighborhood. So bridging neighborhoods, and this is a solution for the residents right now, like a quicker fix than getting the policy, passed. They're using MERV 13 quality filters, MERV. Standard filters use MERV 8, and hospitals use MERV 14. So 14 is the quality for a sterile room, operation quality, like you can do a surgery room that has a filter like this. So they're using MERV 13 in the houses in Southwest Detroit, in the Delray area for the residents that are still in the yellow and green zones. And that's helping them. They installed new HVAC systems and created central air systems into some of these old houses. They retrofitted them, so they work, and they work year round. It's not just for summertime, they work through the wintertime. You can adjust the temperature so it doesn't blow cold air during the wintertime. So that's one of the things I think we could work with AK Steel, since they're still offering to help the community, and I think this would bring things kind of to the right side at the very least. Bridging Neighborhoods is doing it, and they have contractors hired. I can connect you with Lincoln Hoy Moore. This is part of the money from the settlement with Marathon. So that's part of the funding, yeah. So since AK Steel's right up the road, maybe we can work with them to come up with some temporary solutions until these other things are doing. And these particles aren't going anywhere. They're going to be in the soil, in the trees. It's still going to be in the air. The people are going to breathe them. I think it's a good, fair solution because people are still going to live here. Miss Landrum, she's here. I had the great fortune of meeting her through my fellowship this past year through Latina. I don't know if you remember us, but her community's doing great work with monitoring the air with the EPA. They set up a system next to the church, and I thought that was phenomenal. I think we can do something similar here in the South End. At the very least, just to give the residents real-time ideas of what's going on into the air. I don't know if some of you might have seen that there was that Instagram page where we would document the color of the smoke coming from the different factories, especially when Severstall was still here. I don't know what was in the air at that point. I didn't do so well in chemistry, so I don't know what color smoke means what. But I really do think these are some solutions, and if you need me to connect you with somebody from Bridging Neighborhood so they can at least share what they're doing for the residents, I would be happy to do so.
Thank you.
Hi, many of you guys know me by name, but not my face. My name is Sam Baydoun. I know I've connected with almost all of you on the panel. I'm gonna just speak a comment about, it's kind of a lengthy comment, about AK Steel. And not just AK Steel, I don't want to beat on them, it's the whole array of companies in our area. Just to start with though, I want to respond to something that was said earlier about the South End residents not complaining. I mean, I knew Dave Norwood when he was still a residential inspector. I know some of these inspectors by name. I have their cell phone numbers. So we do harass them. It's on that level, but I'm gonna make it relevant. Marianne Williamson was the highest searched name on the first night of debate night, and a lot of you have gone there. And why was it? Because she made a comment that the Flint water crisis would not have occurred had it been in Grosse Ile. And that is exactly why we're here today. Because the crises we're facing would not be happening in the west side of Dearborn, Beverly Hills, and Lansing, anywhere else. They're happening in our neighborhoods. House Bill 5557 was introduced to give the mega tax credits to AK Steel by a representative who's Republican and doesn't even come from this area, from Utica. These backdoor agreements with MDQ, with state legislators, they're the reason that we're so beat up in this area. In 03, Dearborn refining was hit with 1.25 million. Severstal was settled for 1.35 million in 17. Ford fined 30,000, and all of it goes to the state. We need what was mentioned before, the supplemental environmental projects that directly come back to our community. We've gotten a bunch of trees once, maybe the air filtration system in Salina School that was supposed to last 10 years, but because of how bad the air is, it needs replacement within 5. Imagine, 1 out of every 6 people gets asthma. One of you 6 could walk out today and get asthma. I mean, if I was to tell you that, how fast would you guys act? How fast, if you knew your children would walk out of here today with asthma? Let me go back to some of the companies. A lot of these companies, they transgress. They're deemed aggressors, and they're just given more leeway by EGLE, to reduce their emissions. You guys help them. You don't help us. You help them try to meet the emission standards. They're the perpetrators. They're violating these permits. They're issued, the violations occur, the money goes to the state. We're back at square one. The issues, the permits occur, the violations occur, and then we're back at square one. They give money to the state. That's not a solution. That's not a solution. According to a study by Access in 2019 in U of M, there's continuous exposure to these carcinogens lead to leukemia, asthma, cancers, reproductive defects, Alzheimer's, loss of muscle control, COPD, chronic kidney disease, cardiac arrest, stroke. I can go on and on and on. This is our health, my children's health. Do you understand how important that is? My kid could die at an early age. My kid could wake up tomorrow with asthma or COPD or any of these issues. Do I want to see my child suffer with cancer? Because my reproductive health has been altered forever. This is not something that is an issue and a problem today going forward. This is a problem that has already occurred. I want reparations at this point. I don't want just a solution. I want you guys to pay me back for all the damage you've already done to my community, my people, my children. This is where we're at today. West Dearborn, you know where that's at. It's probably about 5 miles away. The West Dearborn rates of the same diseases, of some of these same diseases, are half of ours. Half of our rates. Abdul Sayed, you guys are familiar, Detroit health director, called us the epicenter of the asthma crisis. 1 in 6, I mentioned, suffer from cancer. We have 3 times a higher rate of lung cancer, cardiac disease, and stroke. A WSU study determined that Arab Americans were adversely affected. Up to 70 deaths per year are due to pollution. We've been described by studies to be in a crisis on the magnitude of the Flint water crisis, except you can't see it, so nobody acts. EGLE's permitting process, it's flawed. The permits to this area do not go out in Arabic. Less than 60% of our community members speak English. You should already know this from the decades long we've been fighting. You should already be sending these permits or requests in Arabic. You know this. I shouldn't have to be asking EGLE to do this. Imagine if you were at home and you received a Spanish notice that says, hey, we're building a factory across the street. If you have any questions, let us know. You don't know how to respond because you don't speak Spanish, do you? These people don't speak English. Get that. Change your processes. The permitting process is also flawed because they've denied, if you think about it, 1 in every average 20 years. Why are permits denied 1 in 20 years? Because they go by not a cumulative health impact like was mentioned. And that is something that needs to be implemented. The UM study also showed that we are not in attainment for sulfur dioxide or ozone, so we have the worst air in Michigan. I'm gonna continue and skip some of this stuff because I could go on for days about examples. Why keep adding more? This is what it boils down to. Environmental racism. This is racism. We are a minority, we are low income, we don't speak the language. And let me go over one last thing, the executive order. I mean, it's been already determined by a study that the race is the single biggest factor in determining whether you live next to a toxic waste dump. So that's already been studied, and I'm not just making this stuff up. In 1994, President Clinton issued an executive order 12898 mandating that federal agencies identify and address disproportionately high and adverse human health or environmental effects of their actions on minority and low-income populations. This executive order needs to be put in place at the state and at our local level. It's ridiculous. You guys have been elected. You guys are in places of power that you can make these changes. And it doesn't need to wait decades and town halls and meetings later. It needs to be done now. You go back to your offices, you make the phone calls, and you start putting this into place. Sorry. Ordinances can be passed. Permits, I'm just gonna go over action items that I know came to my mind as we were talking. Ordinances, permits can and should be denied. Permitting processes need to be changed. Panels can be formed, and this time not disbanded like in 2008 and 2010. The impropriety of EGLE, specifically meeting with companies, emails that have been uncovered, it needs to stop. There needs to be a red line. You cannot do that. You are supposed to be environmental protection, not corporation protecting. That is not your job. Your department is for us to protect the environment and the people. And lastly, this area being left behind, that needs to finally be addressed. You all have that power, and I urge you once again to do that for us. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for sharing. I feel your pain because I've been in this fight for years, and so I totally understand it. I take very, very, very seriously the role that I'm in now. I can't wave a magic wand and fix it, because if I could, I would, trust me. But what we're working to do and what I'm excited about tonight is this is the first time in the years that I've worked on this with folks like Teresa and other people in the room, is rarely do we have the people we have at all levels of government looking at how to fix this. Congresswoman made a point earlier that this administration has made a commitment to doing things. The fact that this position exists, and one of the things I kind of said when I first talked to someone about this position is, understand you are hiring a person who is at heart an activist and an advocate. So to your point about change may take some time, because some things, the challenge and the thing that I've learned since I've been at EGLE is, as a regulatory agency, they have to follow certain regulations. And I know you guys have heard that over and over again, but it's actually true. And so some things need to change at a legislative level. Some things may need to change at a federal congressional level, and other policies can change. And understanding what those are and how we work together to get that done is a big part of the change that you are looking for. And I will make a commitment to you that at any time you can reach out to me, and I will work hard and work to at least figure out how we take the next step. Government moves slow. I figured that out in my few months, but we're gonna try to speed things up because, people have been waiting a long time for a remedy. So again, thank you. I appreciate so much you inviting me. I really do. And I'm looking forward to working with everyone up here to try to make a difference, because you're right. People have been suffering for too long, and I totally agree.
To that point, I pose a question to Representative Hammoud and to Senator Chang. What could be done on the state level to divert this money to the local cities that have been impacted by this pollution? Is there a bill already on it? Okay. Instead of sending the money to the general fund, it should be invested here in the communities.
So just one thing that I want to add to that, I've heard of the bill, and the bill that will alter the funding from the general fund to a localized fund that benefits the affected area. But the one thing that many may not know is when there is a violation, the violator still has an opportunity to negotiate the amount. Anyway, so that is, I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Senator Chang, that's not corrected in the bill that you've mentioned, correct?
So actually, Regina was in this meeting when I mentioned a couple of things. First of all, though, the bill number is Senate Bill 60. So if that's something that you want to help advocate for, we'd love to have your assistance in doing that. So Senate Bill 60. But actually, in my very first meeting with the new EGLE director, this was, I think it was early April, I did mention, you know, the department does have the discretion, right? Right now, when they calculate these fines, they use this like really old EPA formula that I think probably almost every state uses. I don't really know, but it's from the 90s. It's like typewritten, and it hasn't been updated, right? And so, but there are some things that the department can use their discretion. I can't remember offhand, Tracy might remember, there's a couple of factors where like past violations or you know, efforts ongoing from the company where they could actually bump up the fine even more. So those are things that the department could do, and I did urge the director and Regina to think about how can we use this as a hammer, because clearly if companies just violate and violate and violate, and they're just probably building it into their budget that they're gonna pay these fines, it's not actually a deterrent, right? So we need to find a way to increase the fine so that they actually will stop violating. Because right now, what we have, if it's you know $100,000, $200,000 to some of these billion-dollar, million-dollar companies, it's not much money, and so they can just build it into their budget quick and easy. But Senate Bill 60 would do exactly what we're talking about, is make sure that money comes back to the communities. So that's one piece of diverting the funds, but then of course increasing the fines is something that we'd have to work on with the department.
Great. So just before we go on to the next, I just wanted to make sure, to begin with, the regulations that are set in place are very weak. So it takes really a long time and long attempts to capture someone in the act to be violated. And once they do get caught, they know it's no big deal because they can negotiate the fine. And then, okay, here you go. Like you said, it may be already calculated in the budget that they have anticipated for the upcoming fiscal year. So I think one